Flipping the table against big carriers and giving power back to the men and women behind the wheel. One trucker has ideas on making that happen. Plus, getting from point A to point B can be difficult enough, much less when you're hauling superloads through Wyoming. More truck parking talk in Congress, Mother Nature's battle against the Walcott Truckers Jamboree, and more. Welcome to Trucking with OOIDA. I'm Scott Thompson.
And I'm Ashley Blackford.
Ashley, we got a good one today.
We do have
lots
a good
going
show
on. We're going to talk with Will Cook, trucker and author and blogger, and a number of other things. He wears quite a few hats. Hear a little bit later about his new book. You talked about superloads.
Like I said, I love a superload, and Wyoming DOT. One just went through there recently, and we've got a few more coming up. So talked with Andrea Staley about that.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Before that, though, we should cover some news of the day here, and we're going to start with a busy day on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. We had in one chamber of Congress, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy testifying before the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. In the other, we had President Trump's picks to lead three separate DOT agencies appearing before the Senate Transportation Committee for nomination hearings. And we're going to cover both more in detail here in the coming days, but wanted to start with the nominee to lead the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, Derek Bars. He's got a 34-year career between the public and private sectors. He said in his opening statement that he spent about, 25 years dedicated to commercial motor vehicle safety before retiring in 2020 as chief of the Florida Highway Patrol. And Bars, always like to see this during opening statements or any testimony out there, also gave a shout out to truckers in that opening statement.
The trucking industry touches all of our lives. Commercial drivers transport over 70% of our nation's freight and share the road with us every day. These professionals are the backbone of our economy. They work long hours, often away from their families, to ensure that we have the goods we rely on. I deeply respect the dedication and understand the delicate balance between enhancing safety and enabling efficient freight movement. I salute and value the American truck driver and thank them for their work.
And Bars added that if confirmed, he would make roadway safety a top priority, and that includes truck parking. This is what he said in response to a question from Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada on that very topic when she expressed some concern about the truck parking crisis there.
Truck parking surely is a necessity, is one that I've been working on for a long period of time throughout my career in the public and private sector. I can tell you that in my state, in Florida, we've made that a top priority, just like I know that is an issue for you in your state, and looking at different ways that we can work with Federal Highway with funding that goes directly to truck parking, looking at engineering ways to potentially redesigning current locations that are there now.
So while that was going on the Senate side of things, we had Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy sitting before the House T&I Committee for one of their, regular checkups, so to speak, just to kind of check in and see what they're doing and how it's all going. We're going to have more on that as well in the coming days. But I thought it interesting that truck parking was mentioned here in this hearing as well. It was Congressman Brian Babin of Texas who brought it up. Let's listen to that exchange.
Mr. Secretary, the lack of safe and accessible truck parking has been a top concern for many in the trucking industry for many years. The department recently highlighted truck parking infrastructure as a priority. Can you elaborate on what specific actions, funding mechanisms, or guidance would include to address the nation's severe truck parking shortage?
Yeah, I would just note that I don't think this was a past priority. I know this administration does care about truck parking and the safety of truckers and our traveling public. So we've already deployed one large grant agreement with Florida. We have others in the works, and we're going to continue to work with all of you to make sure that our truckers are treated fairly and our public is safe.
And Ashley, what Secretary Duffy was referring to there with Florida is the U.S. DOT advancing more than $275 million in grant funding to expand truck parking availability nationwide. We talked about this quite extensively a couple weeks back. Florida's getting about $180 million of that money in the coming weeks to add more than 900 truck parking spaces along the I-4 corridor. We are hitting a very busy stretch on Capitol Hill right now. I was just looking at the calendar before we came in here, and there are hearings galore about transportation and trucking over the next couple of weeks, including one next week in which OOIDA Executive VP Louis Pugh will be testifying at. We'll, of course, be covering that and covering all the bases as well for anything worth talking that happens out there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hair testing. It's one of those things that I feel pops up every, 6 months to a year.
Yeah, it really does.
It's up again. A lawmaker in Arkansas wants to make it so the results from hair testing can be shared. Late last week, Representative Rick Crawford introduced a bill that would allow FMCSA to report positive hair test results from pre-employment and random testing in the clearinghouse. So right now, urinalysis is what's done for the current drug and alcohol testing requirements. However, there are some larger fleets that require employees to undergo hair testing. Now, these results are not reported in the database, so this would make it so they would be. This wouldn't mandate hair testing, but it would allow motor carriers to report the results to other potential employers. So this is not the first time that we've heard, about hair testing. And it won't be the last time, that's for sure.
For sure, yeah. And there are a handful of problems with hair testing that it's been a while actually since we've talked about it, and maybe we can get someone on the show to talk about that as well, and the problems with going about it that way. But we'll see where this bill goes. I'm going to guess it may not go very far, but who knows? We will see for sure. Let's get our check on weekly diesel prices here, Ashley. They continue to rise. The Energy Information Administration's latest report shows that the national average at $3.75 a gallon last week. That's up nearly 2 cents compared to the previous week. That is now 2 straight weeks of increases and the third increase over the past 4 weeks. You might remember that this trend basically started, I think, at the end of June with a 20-cent jump in diesel prices then. And last week we saw every region with prices going up except for the Midwest, where the price stayed right where it was. But it is a trend that we are tracking. Again, it looks like prices are back on the increase there.
Yeah, another trend we are tracking at the Port of LA, record numbers. It's been, June was a busy month for them. It was reportedly the busiest June in the 117th year history of the port.
All right.
So the port's executive director said that some importers are bringing in year-end holiday cargo ahead of the potential higher tariffs later in the year. Last month, they handled 892,000 20-foot equivalent units, which was about 8% more than last year. And they think July is going to be just as busy.
Is it Merriam-Webster, the dictionary? They do like the word of the year at the end of the year.
Is this going to be
tariffs?
I'd bet a few bucks on that.
I think I would too.
Yeah.
Well, we can't bet against each other, but we'll find somebody out there to bet with us for sure. We spoke earlier this week about the start of CVSA's Operation Safe Driver Week. It runs through Saturday throughout North America, Ashley, and the enforcement blitz, of course, looks a lot like it always does with heightened enforcement, but there is a new wrinkle that caught my eye here, Ashley. I don't know if you saw what they're doing in New York State. They put out, the state DOT there did put out a social media post, pictures included. It shows how they're using drones now, I guess, to patrol the roadways there. But it's not just the drones, and they showed some photos of just, standard trucks from the air. But they're also apparently using thermal drone technology to spot unsafe equipment like faulty brakes and flat tires. I guess they've got a thermal image of a semi that it appears to be in motion there on their Facebook page. Shows some hot spots on the truck. So another tool in law enforcement, the law enforcement tool belt there. Some of the comments, though, as they often are on that Facebook post, were pretty interesting. One person said, "Imagine being pulled over because a thermal camera saw a hot spot." Another said, "If you can't spot a violation without a thermal camera, you probably don't know what you're looking at and shouldn't be writing tickets." And another one said, "Show me what it's supposed to look like with a flat tire or bad brakes because that picture above is not it." All valid points, I think. Another saying that they have money for thermal cameras, but not enough money to repave any of the roads. And I thought, hey, all right.
You kind of have a point there.
There's a perspective for sure.
One last item of business to get to. We spoke with Lee Meyer of Iowa 80 a couple weeks back ahead of the Walcott Truckers Jamboree, which was this past weekend. It looks like they had a great turnout despite some weather issues there. Around 46,000 people showed up for the event, though, and Marty Ellis was one of them.
Yeah.
We are going to chat with him in a little bit to find out how that was and what it was like with the tornado warnings.
Yeah, sound like some drama out there. We'll look forward to that. Also talking superloads in Wyoming coming up next. So we've got Will Cook, trucker and author, for an interesting chat. We'll see you right after this break. Welcome back to Trucking with OOIDA. Our next guest is a trucker with more than 34 years of experience and more than 4 million safe driving miles. But Will Cook is also an author. He's out with a new book called The Driver Shortage: How Political Elites, Mega Carriers, and Global Interests Sold Out American Truckers. And Will joins us on the line now. So truck driver, blogger, author, what should I call you, or how would you like to be described here? Because you got a lot of hats that you're wearing.
I just will. I'm telling you, not too long ago, I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, I hit this part of my life. I said, what's my purpose here for the last little bit? And it was like, well, what do you know? Well, I know trucking, and I have been digging deep into God's Word, and I love people. So it was basically a calling of just standing up for the working class, for the everyday Joe, basically, and just do what I know. And those are the two things I know. So that's what I do, and that's where I went. So that's where my books are surrounding. And up till then, I never even wanted to write. It was just something that really laid on my heart about 3 years ago.
So you really hadn't started writing until about 3 years ago, is that right?
It'll be about 3 years ago now. Yep.
Let me take a step back here, if we can, Will, because you're talking about something, and you're talking about your perspective, and that's your website, adriversperspective.com, right?
Yes.
You're talking about something here that I think speaks to a lot of concerns that people have out there, and you've been a professional truck driver for, I think, more than 34 years at this point. You've got millions of safe driving miles under your belt. Your perspective, I think, is valuable because you've seen things change over that time, over the past 34 or so years, and that's kind of shaped what you're talking about right now and kind of the concerns that you've seen. Big picture, what we're talking about here is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, and please, expand on this, but what you've seen over the past 30 plus years is that the focus has been less on the individual human being that is behind the wheel of a commercial motor vehicle, and the focus has turned more toward the corporations. How can we make more money off the backs of these men and women who are behind the wheel? Is that kind of where you're coming from here, and the motives, I suppose, that kind of come along with it? Am I filling in the blanks here the right way?
Yes. Let's go to the predatory lease, and I'm not going to that word just come out, but let me break that down. I remember when I came out driving in the early 90s, I came out of the National Guards in '89 as a 88 mic truck driver. And so my civilian job, and there wasn't lease programs out back then. If they were far and few between. It was an owner-operator or something like that was doing a deal with somebody, right? That which would have been called a lease program, but it wasn't like it was.
Yeah.
And I remember when it started transitioning. And when it started transitioning, it was a positive thing if you were willing to go out and stay out 5 weeks. A lot of these programs were for over the road, per se.
Yep.
Okay. And then I seen it transition into not Old Dominion. Who was that did it? YRC, or who was there before YRC? But anyways, those guys there, Yellow or something like that. Some of the local, and then I seen it to where it transferred into to where these mega carriers. Prime is a big one that I watched closely, so I kind of know what they did. They went. And I think ATS did the same thing too. And they bought the Freightliner dealerships. They had their own dealership. So what they were doing, now what's happening here is you start seeing this change going from where it wasn't as making as much money off of the driver and hauling the freight as what it is logistics, brokerage, and leasing trucks.
what you're describing here too, I mean, is it, I hate to simplify it because I know there's a lot of moving parts when we talk about all the problems here, but when I hear you speak and when I see what's going on out there currently, the word greed is the word that comes to mind. How much of that is the contributing factor here, I guess, in your opinion?
I'm glad you said that. And here's how I kind of lay it out in the book. And I can write, if I have time to write and think, I can put it on paper a lot better than I can talk, right? But here's what happened. I even say it in the book. I said it wasn't so don't hear what I'm not saying. The presidents didn't come out, Bushes didn't come out and say, we're going to get these truck drivers. We don't care about them. What they did is they didn't even think about us. They didn't care. It was business, okay? And it was a global agenda. Because if you look and you read the books, it's really important because if you look, you'll see where Warner made a shift. You'll see where UPS, the union, made a shift. You'll see where these guys, when Sam Walton stepped down, and where these guys come in. And they don't like to talk about it, but you're going back to Vanguard, BlackRock, and everybody, oh, conspiracy. No, it's right there in front of you now. It's no longer a conspiracy. Follow the money, read the book, follow the money. I put it out in front of you. You see it. And it's nothing, it's business is what it is.
Yeah,
okay, it's straight up business, and that's what they've done. So, yes, you're right. It's greed. Why? Because if this company didn't do it, another company's going to do it. So you're just going to be left behind. So it's a dog-eat-dog world. So there's your balance, right? Just like autonomous trucks. If we don't do something with driverless trucks, and China and them, I'm getting ready to put an article out about that. If China and them get ahead of us, and they're not, but if they did, and they are working on it, Europe, China, all of them are working on it. If they did, then we would be bound to them for the technology. Well, we wouldn't be the leaders in it.
Artificial intelligence is a great example of that as well.
Yes.
That's coming whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
right?
We can't put it back in the box.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that'd be like putting our cell phones back in the box. It's not going to happen.
That ain't happening. I can tell you. That is not happening for sure. You mentioned the book, The Driver Shortage, How Political Elites, Mega Carriers, and Global Interests Sold Out American Truckers. And in it, you talk about these things that you're talking about right now. Tell us just kind of if you were to give a synopsis of what the book gets into and kind of what you're trying to say in the book, for someone who might be interested in it. And I think you've kind of laid it out here a little bit, but you're essentially kind of laying out how we got where we are now, which is in many ways a messy system that doesn't work for every man and woman out there.
All right. The heart of the book. First of all, that book is just the layout of the second book that drops in August. Okay. The machine behind the wheel. And there's a two-part to this, and it's all corporate is what's going on though. But in the two parts of it, this is what I'm hoping to inspire someone that's thinking the way I do or knows on the inside. I put the players out there. I don't want to give too much of it away.
That's fine. But
if you look again, it's not the FMCSA. We're coming out here. It's just like Sean Duffy right now, and these guys, yay, and we're all rooting that he did English proficient. It's like, and Trump come into office, and it's like these people are still there. They're still in position. They didn't go nowhere. The people that allowed this, it's like you have the top corporate. We're going to say BlackRock, them guys, okay, because it's shareholder, it's the capitalism, right, that's coming down. They control the money, and then all these mega carriers are underneath them under the ATA, and they put Chris Spears in place to be their mouthpiece for the ATA, which is big. Transportation's big, and now we've got a global footprint around the country, so it's no more America. It's not about America no more, and that's what we have to draw back, and that's what I'm trying to get through to these books is we need to get to that congressman that's being bought out because we can't stop people from lobbying them. You can't do that. But you can get these congressmen that go in poor and come out rich out.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to vote. And there's nothing wrong with driverless. There's nothing wrong with capitalism. What's wrong is exactly what you said, the greed. And then what their greed did, and I'm just going to put this in a nutshell, and you guys read the books and take it and go with it. Hopefully somebody that listens to this or reads the book, Elaine Chao you have to go back, and you just read the book on
Yeah.
that. But Elaine Chao, and I'm going to give you this. This is all I'm going to give you out of this right now. And I show you. It's not me saying it. I show you the records in it. Elaine Chao and Chris Spears came up through the ranks from the labor department up through the ranks together. She pretty much mentored him. She got in here through Mitch McConnell, okay, through Bush Sr. First of all, it came Bush Sr., Bush Jr., okay. Obama pushed the ball, okay. I mean, he really put it through, and he even stated, you can go back and look this stuff up, like what we're doing right now. He said the way to get us, because he pulled all those guys together, the Microsoft and all them guys into the room, says, how do we get America to transition from where we're at now into the technology of where we're going? And it came to, well, you cause these problems, and they're going to accept a lot of this stuff just for some sort of normal again. And that's what we're doing right now. But I see the bigger picture, and that's what people don't like, is when I call out the bigger picture. Because it's like, you know, you weren't there during ELDs, you weren't there during this, but now all of a sudden, and I go back and I do the homework, okay, so I know where they come from, and I know who they worked for, the predatory lease, and blah, blah, blah. So what we're doing now, Trump's coming in, and he's put this executive order in, and we're all distracted, and we're all, yay, yay, yay. But at the same time, do you realize Trump's only going to be in office how many more years? And unless somebody
3.5,
picks it up, unless somebody picks it up, we're going right. We could possibly go right back, just like speed limiters. It's still a plus. Yes, it's a positive move, but we can't take our eye off the ball right now. The game's nowhere near over.
Right.
Because
You're looking at actual solutions that stick, and that's what you're calling for.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, Will.
And it's going to get into Congress. It's got to get into Congress. We got to get on the Hill and get these people. I mean, there's nothing wrong with autonomous. There's nothing wrong with having a global footprint. There's nothing wrong with what these guys are doing, but they don't. The transition, they don't care. You know, there's always casualties in war. There's always casualties in transition.
Well,
yes, but you need to focus on that and get as least as we can, right?
And you're talking about the system, obviously. Let me ask you this, because it is really tough to digest when you start talking about all the different players and all the different moving parts and the complicated web, the complicated system that's been developed over the past, several decades, and the reality of where we are now. You talked about something there a little bit ago about what you'd like to see individual truck drivers do to maybe help move, these issues along and improve things in the long run, not just temporary solutions here and there, but actually making things better for everybody out there. As an individual, what would you suggest they do to make that happen? I mean, reaching out to lawmakers obviously is one avenue. It sounds like you're talking more of a political movement in terms of getting some of these folks out of there that are maybe taking advantage of their position. But what does that look like for an individual, truck driver out there? They want to make a difference. What would you say to them?
I don't know how to. I know what I would do. Again, from my perspective, and you have OOIDA there. OOIDA's not perfect, but they've already got a seat at the table. They've been there for years. I've talked to a couple of guys there, and seem to be like they've got a good moral compass, right? And you take like United or American Truckers United, Shannon and Harvey. And instead of, it seems like for the last 5 years, I added it up. There's been like 7 associations or 7 groups that's came through. It was Yanni out of Grand Ledge, Mike Landis and them. They did UTA or whatever. I think Tony Justice even had a group. Black Smoke Matters had their group. I did 7 of them. I wrote them down. Okay, we just had the Charles and Bob Murphy and all them guys do one. And every time these guys do something, it splinters. Okay, it splinters the advocacy. And some of the people that they draw away, the division, they just get so sick of it, they don't even stand up no more. they're out. They're going to just fold out completely. They want nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So you asking what's the solution? Well, like right now, and I put it on, and it makes me unpopular again to say this, but it's just truth. They should build on top of OOIDA, not try to tear it down. The more people that you have, if you have a group of 200, like let's say UTA, if they're that big and they've got all these people, you become a member of OOIDA, and then you say, hey, there's 200 of us right now, and we think this or we think that. You get what I'm saying? They'd have more power. And if they're going to go fight, first of all, these groups need to understand exactly what OOIDA can do and what they can't do. Call them up and ask them.
Sure.
You know, that's the big thing. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? We don't have, but probably, this is probably a bigger number than what it really is, Scott. We may have, I say 300, and I think that's a big number, of real driver advocates, of people out here really standing up, like myself or these guys that'll get on Facebook and really advocate, right, per se.
Yeah.
And those 300 are staying in their circle. And if you don't agree with them, and they'll attack you personally.
I always like when I point fingers, I like to point the finger at social media for a lot of this mess that we've gotten ourselves into. For some reason, social media has, I think, divided us more than it has brought us together in many respects. But that's just my little hill to stand on there, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but if people want to hear your message, if they want to, take your advice by reading your book, is the best place to do that to go to your website, adriversperspective.com?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, go to the website, driversperspective.com. We've got Will Cook on X, at Will Cook. Will Cook on X. Will Cook on X, however it goes. Yeah, and I just started Substack today. I'm going to get out and talk to some people and probably be putting some videos, interviews and stuff on Substack here. That's the plan.
Our thanks to Will Cook for his time. Trucking with OOIDA is back in just a moment.
Welcome back. Andrea Staley joins me now. She is the Senior Public Relations Specialist with Southeast Wyoming DOT. Andrea, how you doing?
Good. How are you today, Ashley?
Doing well. Now, today we're talking superloads. I was scrolling Facebook the other day and came across a post from the Wyoming DOT page of a video of a recent superload. And I gotta say, these types of videos, even if you're not in the trucking or transportation world, are absolutely fascinating.
It is. And we've been having a few of these come through within the last few years. So it's always a big deal when it hits our interstate.
Now, talk to me. I've done a few interviews on these, and this is a big deal when these things are done.
It is. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration, and kind of getting all hands on deck when these hit the interstate, because they do impact travel for a few hours and sometimes a few miles. So we just want to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. We want to make sure our travelers on our interstates aren't impacted, but it is a big deal. These things are pretty big and they are very slow.
Can you talk to me about what it was and just how big this was?
Yeah. So it's a transformer for a wind farm out in Medicine Bow area. This wind farm it's growing, and so they keep needing to move these transformers. So it comes in into the Laramie rail yard. The transformer itself, it weighs about 1 million pounds. So because of that, they need to have a transport that can support that heavy of a load. And so and I can send you photos. There's a lot of axles. We don't want it to damage any of our roadways, any of our structures. So the whole thing altogether with the transport and the transformer, and then all of the vehicles that are attached to it, it's about 1.5 million pounds. Essentially, it's 1,484,000 pounds, so about 1.5 million. And then the other part of it is it's very tall. It's over 17 feet tall, so it can't go under a lot of our overpasses. So instead, they have to go up the on-ramp and then down the off-ramp to get around those. And then it's also 26 feet wide. And our highways are about 26 feet wide. And so it takes up both lanes. So traffic cannot pass it. There's no way to get around it. They are able to, along their route, to take, kind of these larger shoulders or these truck parkings to kind of get out of the way to get traffic through. But the superload itself, because it is so big and so heavy, it can only travel between 25 and 35 miles per hour. And then it has to slow down to what they call a creep over all of our structures. And that's essentially going 5 miles an hour over any of our structures or bridges. So it's just going to back up traffic. I know last year they had one. There was, I think, either the first or second one, there wasn't as much communication. And so it was sort of a surprise to all of us when it actually happened. And they had traffic backed up for about 15 miles, which was pretty unlikely, unusual. We don't really love seeing that. But since then, it's been a really great process to get, the communication and collaboration. We're now seeing backups probably about for 2 miles, which isn't terrible. It's not 15.
As far as the weight goes, is that one of the biggest that's been moved through there?
Having talked to the port of entry and their permitting, the port in Laramie, they had said that was the largest load that they had ever permitted. I can't speak to the rest of the state, but definitely in our area, it's one of the largest loads that we allow on our interstate, just because we don't want to damage the roadway. We work hard to keep it in good condition. So.
And that was one of the things I know people in the comments I read from the videos and pictures, they were wondering, is this damaging our roadways? Talk to me about the logistics with the axles and lightening the load a bit on the roads.
Yeah, so the reason there's so many axles on the transport, and mind you, I am not an expert by any means, but it basically distributes the weight so it won't damage. And the rate of speed that they're allowed to go is so to not damage the road surface. It is extremely heavy, and we do take the precautions. We do make sure that all the permits are in place, that the road surface can actually withstand that load. And honestly, these guys are experts. They know what they're doing. Having talked with all of the guys on the transport, throughout this whole process, they are, they're really sorry to say this, but they're kick-ass. So they know what they're doing.
For our listeners who aren't able to see the videos or pictures, which I'm going to encourage them to do, explain to me what this looked like, because there wasn't just one escort car. There were a few of them, right?
There's a couple. So what they do is they have obviously the driver in the front, and then behind them, last year I think they had 3. I think this year they're just doing 2, but they have also 2 more, trucks that are pushing it. And there's a ton of communication. The guys, every time they do either a turn or they're doing some sort of a logistical movement, they have about 5 guys that are on either side of the transport to actually kind of watch and make sure everything's going well. But yeah, it's a big operation, and there's a lot of people involved. And I think they have. So yesterday they had to return the transport back to get the other transformer that is coming into town. And I think they had 5 either follow vehicles or, traffic control vehicles as well. So it's, I think, there's 20 guys that are probably a part of this whole operation. They do a great job with the traffic control. Our highway patrol has also been involved to help, stop traffic when needed, to get these onto the interstate safely and, off of the interstate. So it's this thing is pretty big, pretty powerful, and a lot of hands on deck. So.
And you have 2 more of these happening this summer.
Yep. So we don't have the dates totally nailed down. I think the next one, it sounds like they're looking for next week. But to get this, because the transformer is so large, they have to take apart the actual transport every time and then hook it up together. So it takes about a week once they get it to where it needs to go to take it then apart and then put it back together again to be able to transport it. So it's a long process for this, but when it hits the interstate, everyone knows.
Talk to me about how big of a role does social media play in something like this, as far as getting the messaging out, that it's going to happen. And then, of course, pictures and videos were shared that it did happen.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, honestly. It's really the quickest way to get real-time information out for us. And it's obviously something that a lot of people catch on to or get excited about. But for me, in my role, it's, the only way I can get it out. So I can send press releases, I can do all sorts of news interviews, but until it's actually happening the day of and getting that kind of real-time information, that's really what I think people pay attention to the most and where they're getting a lot of their information nowadays. And so it's just, it's such a godsend, honestly. And that video, so I had followed the transport basically through town from the rail yard until it hit the interstate. And I believe that first video had over about 2 million views. And for a Wyoming DOT, that is gold. So it was pretty exciting to see that, and also to see the impact and reaction that people had to it.
One of my favorite comments I think I saw, somebody said that, it should be mandatory to have a sign on the side of it saying, what it is, how much it weighs, how long it is. People are so curious. They want to know all this stuff. And I know everyone was asking that question.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, too, because if they had just scrolled down to the post previous, it would have had all that information. They don't do that, though.
How do you find people's attitudes? Obviously, getting behind something like that is probably not fun. But, when it comes to the information part of it, how do you find people's attitudes are when these types of things happen?
I'd say it's a mixed bag. Anytime there's an inconvenience, it seems that no matter what you do, no matter how much information you can get out there, if it inconveniences anyone, you're going to hear about it. I think, though, it's been better this year just because there has been so much more communication. There's been so much more information that they've been able to share with us that I can then, sort of disperse. And because of that, I think there's been a better attitude towards it. And I think, too, actually having the transport company understand the route now, knowing where they're going and what areas that they can pull aside and, kind of let traffic through, it's definitely had a better impact. We are able to, not back up traffic for miles now. So I do think that people are pretty irate that they have to go from 80 to 30 on the interstate. So I don't think we can ever going to be able to, fix that problem. But it doesn't. It's really only about a 2-hour trip for them on the interstate. So being able to get that information out when they're going to hit the interstate, and then when they're going to be able to get off the interstate, has really helped.
Do you know if the next 2 loads, are they going to be the same weight, or do you know?
Yep. It should be pretty much the exact same weight. They're going to be the exact same type of transformers, at least from my information that I've been given. That's pretty much the same.
I'm always fascinated whenever I see these videos, and they do very well. Like I said, I think, you don't even have to be in the transportation industry to appreciate the kind of logistics and everything that would go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been, it's fun. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. So being able to kind of get the behind the scenes information and get to see the whole process of how this works, it's very cool.
How big of a deal is this for Wyoming?
Obviously a big story for us in Wyoming. And and especially in Southeast Wyoming, we do have I-80 is a pretty heavily trafficked route, especially, for commercial carriers. And we appreciate all the hard work all those guys or ladies and gentlemen do. It's keeping, America moving. So we appreciate that, and happy to chat with you guys in the future.
If anybody listening or watching is thinking, I might be going through there in a couple of weeks or this summer, where can they go and find updated information about what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. All of our websites, any information that I'm going to be putting out there will be on WYDOT District 1, Southeast Wyoming. And that will be for Laramie, Albany, and Carbon County. So pretty much the east-south side of the state. And that has the I-80 corridor through it. So any sort of major information that we have coming out. But also we have a website called wyoroad.info. And on that, it has a map, and it has all these layers, and you can see where you're going to have, construction, for how long, what kind of work they're going to be doing. So you can really kind of plan your trip accordingly to that. And then in the wintertime, it's a huge resource because we do have, we're a rural state. And so we do have large sections of roadway between cities. And we do close our interstates due to storms and wrecks and stuff because we don't want to strand anybody. And it will tell you, any type of closure information, any type of weather information. So it's just a massive resource for anyone traveling in our state. And again, that is going to be wyoroad.info.
Thanks to Andrea Staley from Wyoming DOT to tell us about the superload. As she mentioned, there's a few more planned for the summer, so check out wyoroad.info for the latest. We've got to take a short break, but Trucking with OOIDA will be right back after this.
Thanks to all the hardworking drivers across the U.S. from the Allen Lund Company.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
High heat and low lubricity can break your diesel fuel down fast. Summer driving means crowded roads, more stress, dust, and a bigger risk of costly engine damage. Howe's Diesel Defender protects from the inside out, cleaning, lubricating, and fighting injector wear. Visit HowsProducts.com.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truck Stop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Welcome back to Trucking with OOIDA, joined on the phone now by an old friend, the driver of the Spirit of the American Trucker, the OOIDA tour truck, Marty Ellis. Marty, how you doing?
I am lovely, Scott. And you?
We are doing just fine here. We brought you on, Marty, initially to talk about the Walcott Truckers Jamboree. I know you went this past weekend and were there. I don't think you were planning on – how many tornado warnings did you have? I don't think you were planning on what happened.
Yeah, there were a couple, and this was the first show that I've ever had the law enforcement and the fire department come through and want to evacuate the show area and ask everybody to go into the building.
Wow.
So it was a little bit of excitement.
That's I imagine that was a pretty tight squeeze in that building with all the people that were there.
Yeah, I had a gentleman and his son in the trailer when this first started going on, and by the time we decided to take the golf cart and bring him to his truck, we all were just drenched by the time we got that done. And I did stop by the building and go inside and talk to a few folks that were in there waiting it out there. So, it's everybody came out just fine, except some tents. Some of the tents didn't quite make it. You know how that goes in those tents outside. And but other than that, so a little bit of flooding and that, through the show area. but you could see how high the water was by the marks on the tires.
Wow. There were 2 tornado warnings over. Is that the same day, I assume?
Yep. Friday was the worst day. Thursday, there was a storm that night. It started raining just about the time they started setting off the fireworks. So they did continue to set off some fireworks. I was expecting them just to stop it altogether, but they tried, and you could sure tell the difference. They weren't as bright and lively, but they did their best. But then Saturday in the evening the storms came in, and everybody was hoping they'd miss us, but of course they didn't. And so everybody ended up closing down early, and of course the band couldn't play, and of course the fireworks couldn't go off. So a lot of people were disappointed. And usually Friday night is the light show contest. So they weren't able to do a light show at all for this show because
That's a bummer.
With the weather.
Mother Nature.
Yeah.
What a party pooper.
It is.
Well, minus the weather, how was the show?
Hey, Ashley, it was great. There was good traffic. I've seen it busier, but I actually was surprised at how many show trucks were there. With the economy and talking to folks, I really thought they might be down on trucks, but they really weren't. And there were some sharp-looking trucks out there. Most of them are, of course, working trucks, which I really prefer over the big show trucks that don't really haul freight.
Yeah.
So I enjoy seeing those because those guys really have to put a lot of effort into the cleaning part of it. You're running up and down the road, and we all know how dirty things can get, and they come and polish them up really well, and some really good-looking trucks out there.
I think about that a lot when I see a working show truck. That's like the first thing I think of, actually, is I think these people are on the road every day. They're doing work. They're getting dirty. And just the amount of detail they put in, the amount of hours it must take to get it in that condition.
They make it.
That's like the first thing I always think about when I see these trucks. I think about, that's a great looking truck. And then I think, wow, that thing is really clean.
Working truck, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's just amazing the work that is put into it. A lot of people bring their whole families as their crew, and then other people kind of get some of their buddies to help them out. But it's a lot of work. If you go out there, they usually spend a whole week there.
Yeah.
And so a few days before, and then for the show, just to try to prep them up.
Let me ask you this, Marty, because Ashley and I were talking last week about the Truckers Jamboree there. We have never been. You've been to the Iowa 80.
I've been to the
Ashley,
Iowa 80, which is so cool.
Haven't been to the show, though. And you obviously, you go to a lot of truck shows. How does it compare to, some of the other ones out there? Obviously, there's an antique, truck component to this one. But how does it kind of compare or, I guess, differ maybe from others out there?
Well, one of the ways that I think a lot of people don't understand how it differs is a lot of truck shows, it's like a destination. You go to Matt's, you're basically planning on being there the whole show, and you really have to plan it out. This show brings in a lot of truck drivers that are just passing through, which is kind of cool. They can stop and take their break, maybe get a few stops in the show itself, take a look at some of the new stuff, and then also the cool trucks out there, and maybe get some ideas for their own. So where regular other truck shows, it's more of a destination. With Iowa 80, with the truck stop still being open during all this, the parking is more limited, but guys can still come in there fairly easily, get what they need to do, and see part of the show or the whole show, because it's not huge, so you can see the show in an hour if you really wanted to, a few if you want to talk to people. So yeah, it's kind of a neat little option that a lot of trucks don't get that option.
Now, talking to people I know is something that you enjoy doing at these shows. What was the topic of conversation this past weekend that you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, one of them was the English proficiency. I think too many people had this great idea that all of a sudden things were going to get better in trucking the day that they enacted this back in, because it was supposed to be in to begin with, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. But,
yeah.
How are they going to enforce it? What's the criteria? that type of thing. How is this going to affect the non-domiciled CDL holders? There's so many ins and outs of the English proficiency. And now some people get kind of hung up on it, worried that when we support English proficiency means that we don't like immigrants, and that's totally the farthest thing from the truth. This is all about safety. Can that driver, number one, understand the road signs, understand the overhead signs, understand law enforcement, understand other drivers? When if there's an issue, we have to be able to communicate with each other. So if I say, "Hey, stop! There's a bridge ahead," I need to know that driver understands that. It's a bridge is out. You don't want to go any further. Because people can lose their lives if we can't communicate.
Yeah. Real quick too, Marty. I think rates are probably a pretty common topic that you get no matter where you go. Are you still hearing quite a bit about that? What are people saying there? We're seeing some signs that maybe things are turning a little bit. I'm not sure people are feeling it out there yet, though.
Yeah, people are really not feeling the turn, and going up is always a lot slower as far as rates go than going down. But actually, I'm hearing more about the amount of freight that's available out there. And before it seemed like the freight was available, but they weren't paying anything. Well, now they're not paying much, but there's not a lot of freight out there. There's a lot of company drivers that are having to sit more. Owner operators are saying, I'm going to pick and choose the ones that financially can, are sitting at home and picking and choosing their loads instead of just jumping on things that they probably shouldn't be hauling to begin with.
For sure.
And just wrapping up, Marty, I'm curious, these truck shows sometimes are known for things, some iconic things. I think this one, the pork chop sandwich.
That's a topic of conversation here, Marty.
Yes, Scott and I have been talking about this a lot. I'm curious, did you have one?
Yeah, of course. You have to have at least one while you're there. And they do a really good job with that. They have the big grill outside and, probably 1.5 inch thick pork chops. And, of course, that's their, iconic thing. It's Iowa, so you have to have pork chops there. So, and it's a good time. A lot of people get underneath the tent and have a meal and do some cussing and discussing and trying to solve all the world's problems. But you definitely have to have the pork chops.
Cussing and discussing.
Well, we did some discussing. We didn't do any cussing, Marty. Do you want to get a few curse words out? No, maybe not.
Well, yeah, we'll probably hold off on that, but there was enough. Okay, so
enough to go around.
I don't know if you guys heard it, but Mike Rowe showed up out there.
Oh,
yeah, and so that was kind of cool to see him out there.
That is cool. The Dirty Jobs guy.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good. Well, he would know a few things about those working trucks and getting them clean. Hey, Marty, we appreciate it. Enjoyed you taking us to Iowa there to talk about the truck show, and we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely, anytime. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And our thanks again to Marty Ellis, the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker, the OOIDA tour truck. www.ooida.com is the place to
I don't think you have to say that anymore.
Find out.
But
no, we don't need the www.
I don't think you need the triple W's anymore.
www. I like to say it. It's kind of fun.
You're showing your age.
Yeah, well, that among other things for sure. ooida.com is the place to go to find out where Marty will be next. Always good talking to him. An eventful weekend for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on him. And you think you're gonna make some pork chop sandwiches anytime soon?
I don't know. I
don't even understand what they would be.
I think the main ingredients probably pork chops.
Well, yes, but are we we're not slapping that in between
I'll tell you
pieces
what,
of bread?
we'll get our investigative team on that. We'll try to answer that for our next show. On behalf of Ashley Blackford, I'm Scott Thompson. This has been Trucking with OOIDA, and we appreciate you listening and appreciate all you do out there. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people that includes Jim Fetzer, Keegan White, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
Got thoughts? We'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6856 and leave us a message. Or you can send us an email to podcast@ooida.com, and we might include it on the show.